Welcome to Terry's Kitchen, where we talk food, faith, and family. Today we are going to be making homemade barbecue, beef barbecue, or some call sloppy joe. So before we get started, I'd like to read out of today's devotion that we had. It's out of the NIV Bible, James 5, 7 through 9. Be patient, then, brothers, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crops, and how patient he is for the autumn and spring rains. You too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Don't grumble against each other, brothers, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. You know, looking at and listening to the farmer waits for the land to yield its crops. Had a friend, Donna and Jim, give me some beets yesterday, and so they're on the stove and cooking and some fresh lettuce. So we definitely need to wait on those, as the farmers do with the crops, as well as we wait on the Lord. So Lord, thank you for this day. I pray for all those that are watching this video. May you bless them, guide them, and protect them in the name of Jesus. Thank you for letting me read that. Let me wash my hands and we'll get started. Okay, so with every barbecue, it's like meatloaf. It's like your potato salad, your macaroni salad. Everybody has a version of how they do their barbecue. So this is mine, and I have some other versions that I may try sometime. But I got this recipe. Well, first, want to get the stove. I'm doing 3 pounds. You always know that I cook more than, because I like those leftovers. We're having some company today. So I wanted to do 3 pounds of ground beef. So I've got those in the pot, and I'll put on the recipe on the video that it's going to be a 1 pound recipe, and I'm just tripling that. So I've got the burner on. I'm going to add a small onion per pound. So I have my 3 small onions that I have chopped. I'm going to go ahead and add that. A stalk of celery chopped for each pound. So I've tripled that. And my good old frozen peppers that I pulled out of the freezer. So they are just wonderful. So if you have a green bell pepper, or if you have a red or orange or yellow pepper, that's all good. So a small pepper per pound chopped. So we'll let that start cooking. Mix that around. Then I'll kind of tell you, I got this, there's a little piece of ice from being in the freezer. Don't want that to add that flavor into the barbecue. So like I said, I've had multiple recipes for barbecue. This happened to, ran into a gentleman and his wife, and we were talking cooking, and which I love to talk cooking. And he was saying, well, you need to try this way. And so while this is cooking, so as you can tell, I don't have everything exactly measured out, because I usually don't measure when I'm cooking for ourselves. So I'm going to be, some extra spoons here. I'm going to do some tasting just to make sure my measurements are accurate. But I have some ketchup here. I have some sugar. I used to make a barbecue with brown sugar. I think you can do brown sugar or white sugar. Got some ground mustard, and because I used to do regular mustard. Got some Worcestershire sauce, got some water, some vinegar, salt and pepper. So we're going to kind of marry those flavors together. But when I was talking to the gentleman and his wife, and he was saying, well, you need to try the ground mustard. I was like, okay. So I came home, tried it for the family, and they really liked it, because in the past, my barbecue had a tendency to be really sweet. I had a friend family member, his name is Larry, and he talked about my grandmother Wilmetta's barbecue, and that he had, when he came home from the service, she would always make that for him. So I talked to Aunt Shirley about that recipe, so I'm going to work on that just to make sure I have the right measurements and the right ingredients, but I'll give that a try too, so you can see, and Larry can see how Grandma made that barbecue. She always did hers in a skillet. I have I like my Le Creuset pots. I think they're nice and sturdy. So what we need to do is just get all these ingredients, our hamburger, our onions and peppers and celery. So we're just basically going to be browning that. And as you can also tell, this is Catherine who gave me this idea, and I've shared this in the past, with the grease from your ground beef. So I have a bowl and with some foil, and it's like, what do you always do with that hot grease? So I just line just a glass bowl with some foil, put your strainer in here, and then that way when your grease goes in here, then you don't have to worry about, you let that cool, and then you just wrap up that foil and put it in the trash can. So that's Catherine's invention, and it's just a great thing. So I use that a lot. Only thing is, I was just looking at that with all this ground beef. I don't know if my strainer is going to be large enough, but we're going to give it a whirl. So with our Sloppy Joe's beef barbecue, as I said, we're having some fresh butter beets, thanks to Donna and Jim. And I'm going to make a pot of baked macaroni and cheese. And I'm going to have to give Aunt Shirley a call. My grandmother used to make a hard-boiled egg dressing for over fresh garden lettuce. So I'm going to work on that here in a little bit. But I wanted to get our barbecue going because the longer you can simmer your barbecue, the better it will be and the better it'll taste. Because the gentleman that shared this recipe with me, he said, you know, the barbecue's good the first time, but that second and that third day, you just cannot beat it. So, and that's where all that flavor is just marrying up together. So we're getting there. The meat is browning. It's kind of hot out there today. We're back in the 90s, but I think another storm is coming, so it's a nice day to kind of stay inside by the AC. Okay, we're getting there. I'd be curious to see what you all fix with your beef barbecue. We have a tendency to sometimes do macaroni salad or potato salad. Just sometimes just have a good potato chip with some barbecue. Ron and I like it as leftovers for lunches, so definitely the reason for having that extra pounds here of barbecue. It's taking a little bit longer with all this meat. So once we get this done, all this will kind of move along rather quickly, except for that simmering time. Like I said, we're going to be eating probably maybe in an hour and a half, so that'll give it a nice time to simmer and bring those flavors through. Okay, I think we're almost done here. If you want to use a skillet to do that probably would give it a nice flavor too, if you want to brown your hamburger a little bit more. Whatever you do, it's all good. Okay, I think that I'm not too worried about getting the onions and the peppers and the celery really done at this time, because as you simmer, those vegetables will cook some more. Okay, gonna set this to the side. Gonna bring this over. See if I can do this without making a mess, burning myself. Gonna get a hot pad. Turn that off a second. Drain that juice. I made a little bit of a mess. That's alright. I have Ron here with me. Okay. Get that off my burner here. And see, all that grease goes right in there. It'll cool. And then just wrap it up and put it in your trash. Get all that excess. We don't need that excess there. And I put the pot back on the stove while this process, because I want to kind of dry that pot off from that excess grease. So let me take that to the side. Okay. I'm going to get a paper towel here and clean up my mess. I got hamburger everywhere. Okay, so I'm going to turn this back on, and I'm going to add some salt. So again, I am I'm trying to measure out so that I can give you the right measurements for when you're making it. So I'm going to do about a half a teaspoon per pound of salt. Okay. Then I'm going to do a half a teaspoon of black pepper per pound. Okay. Now, I'm going to add some ketchup. So this is 2 cups of ketchup. So I'm thinking I'm going to try about a half a cup per pound. So I'm going to put a cup and a half in there and mix that up. And if I need to add more, once I get the other liquids in, because sometimes, again, with barbecue, you can kind of change some. I've had that's been has a lot of ketchup to it, and sometimes I'd rather have not as much ketchup and more of some of those flavors. So let me put just a little bit more of that in. Because as it simmers, it's going to start getting some more broth to it. Okay, mix that. So I'm going to do a teaspoon, heavily teaspoon of ground mustard per pound. Okay, let's mix that in. Those flavors are starting to come up. Okay, so he said, well, let me get my dry ingredients. So he said for a pound of the ground beef to do 2 tablespoons of sugar. So I do remember him saying that. So because I have the 3, I'm going to do the 6. Now I'm not making them large tablespoons. I lost count there, but oh well. Were you counting, Ron?
No.
He wasn't. Now we got Junior in the background. He just said I did 10. Now, Junior, I don't think so. If we is, it's going to be very sweet. All right. So I'm going to put, for every tablespoon of vinegar, we're going to put a tablespoon of water. Now, the vinegar, I'm not sure, but a lot of recipes called for vinegar, and when I was talking to Aunt Shirley, she said Grandmother Kopp, Grandma Kopp would do lemon juice, which I hadn't heard that. So let's put our water in there. See, we're building a broth here just by these liquids that we've added. And that's cooking in there. I'm smelling that vinegar. So I'm going to put a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Let me do 2, and I'm going to taste it to see, because I don't want to overpower with the Worcestershire sauce, even though that has a wonderful flavor and it builds on the flavors. So I'm going to, as you can tell, it's got a lot of liquid in there, so we don't need to add any more ketchup, but I'm going to try, and just to kind of see what those if I have enough of the other seasonings in there. I'm still right now my first, I think all the ingredients we have in there, all the seasonings is right, but let me just try one more time just to. I think that's perfect as far as seasonings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that down into a simmer and just let that simmer until we're ready to for lunch, and put a lid on it, and then just every now and then go back and stir just to make sure you're not burning. But I think we are good, and I think we're gonna have a nice tasty barbecue. So thank you for watching our videos. We appreciate that you have subscribed, and if you like them, please hit like and share, because we do like that you're coming into our home virtually, because we love to cook and we love to share. So blessings.